It's going to be a hell of a week in the life of Batman as we learn the dark and twisted history of Ark M, as well as come face to face with a brand new mysterious villain who might very well put Bruce Wayne's secret identity in jeopardy. Oh, but that's not all. As a special bonus, be sure to stick around because we will be seeing the long-awaited rematch between Spider-Man and the alien conqueror known as Hellgate. It's Absolute Batman Ark M, Batman issue number 5, and Amazing Spider-Man 19, so let's not waste any more time. Let's hop on in together, shall we? Alrighty then, so digging on into the Absolute universe, we have the big Ark M special. A story that seeks to explain all the ins and outs of how a very humble insane asylum in Gotham City eventually ended up becoming a secret black site prison that specializes in creating monsters. Well, you might be surprised to learn that the origin of Ark M and the origins of Arkham Asylum in the main universe actually start from a very similar place. They all begin with one Amadeus Arkham. Today is a very sad day for Amadeus, as today he's meeting with an ultra-wealthy real estate developer with eyes on purchasing the hospital and the land out from under him. Normally, Amadeus would hate to do something like this, but sadly, the times are a-changin'. The hospital is understaffed, in ill repair, and there are already better, more advanced facilities funded by the Lazarus Corporation. Hey, nice reference to what's going on in the Superman book right now. Before this guy is willing to write a check, though, he wants to know more about the hospital and, by extension, Amadeus's own history. He talks about his sad childhood, how his father was a Union soldier who died in a pointless battle long after the war had officially been over. This news drove his poor mother completely insane, who in her madness ended up grabbing away the sidearm from the soldier who brought her this terrible news. She gunned the messenger down, before eventually turning the gun on all but one of her children, then finally herself. And man, let me tell you, this scene in question is incredibly bloody and super graphic, so much to the point I'm actually a little afraid to show it on YouTube because they might just come and demonetize me. I think one of the reasons people really like this Absolute universe is because it's super unafraid to push the envelope when it comes to horror and mature subject matter, and this issue really ends up pushing the envelope that much further. Amadeus never knew why his mother chose to spare him that day and no one else, and the situation ended up leaving him with a metric boatload of survivor's guilt. It was after the death of his family he was sent off to the orphanage until he turned 18, an orphanage that we learn was actually funded by the Elliott Foundation. As in Tommy Elliott Hush? Interesting, his family was still rich. In the Absolute universe, this also implies that Tommy might actually be running around in modern day and that him and Bruce never actually met and became friends because they were from two completely different tax brackets, but that's neither here nor there. Amadeus vowed to make his life mean something and to dedicate it to trying to help the mentally ill like his mother. Using what money he could scrape together, he bought a parcel of land that would one day be home to his brand new asylum. Did I mention the locals thought this parcel of land was cursed because it was a military prison during the Revolutionary War? I'm sure that wasn't some sort of grim omen or anything. Now, believe it or not, for the first couple years, the asylum ran exactly like Amadeus always wanted it to. He staffed it with people who genuinely cared, and they dedicated themselves to trying to help even the hardest cases, which were in no short supply in Gotham. In fact, as we see a nice little snapshot of the patients at the time, these aren't just people dealing with mental illness, these are people that are clearly meant to be proto-supervillains. Now, one of the hardest cases at the early Arkham Asylum was a man known only as Jack Doe, a man who committed crimes so vile and so heinous. Dr. Arkham refused to even say his name, and again, I don't think you have to be an art expert here to realize, wait, that dude's got pale, gaunt skin and stringy hair that looks green in this light. Is he supposed to be who I think he's supposed to be? Well, later on in the story, they do refer to him as a cruel joker who delighted in prodding the staff and other patients, so yeah. Now, in the wraparound story, the real estate guy goes out of his way to ask Dr. Arkham if he ever found time to have any children or a family of his own, what with all the responsibility of running this hospital, and surprisingly, yes he did. Amadeus actually adopted a child who ended up showing up on his doorstep one night completely caked in blood with no memory of what exactly transpired to bring him to that moment. Despite his rough upbringing, this kid became the light of Dr. Arkham's life, and why shouldn't he? They were both orphans. The kid was also fascinated by Amadeus's work and showed no fear amongst the other inmates inmates, the boy would say that every day is a new page, a new chance to do good, and that surely if his adopted father only continued on the road he was on, it would only be a matter of time before he ended up realizing his dream of a better, saner Gotham. Hell, the kid was so upbeat and so positive even after he was grabbed by Jack Doe one day. During a tense hostage standoff, he continued to want to work in the asylum, which of course only warmed Dr. Amadeus Arkham's heart to see. Though this is still a story about Arkham Asylum, and when are any of those stories happy? Jack Doe would lead a inmate revolt one night, killing an inexperienced orderly, stealing his key, and then eventually tunneling out of the asylum through the boiler room in the basement. Amadeus used his political connections to hush up the escape. That means that no one knew that he had also lost his adopted son that night when Jack Doe broke into his quarters, and assumedly killed him. After that, Jack Doe went on a reign of terror so legendary that Dr. Amadeus is almost certain that Doe is actually the real, never apprehended Jack the Ripper, though it seems that a lot of people thought that the Doctor himself was completely out of his mind for ever making such assertions. This also means when Dr. Arkham comes to the basement with the real estate guy, it's the first time he's actually been down there in years. It's only here too does this creepy developer end up showing his own colors. He points out that the bricks in the wall weren't the only thing relaid after the escape all those years ago. It seems that the entire wall was replaced, but why would they do something like that? Not unless the wall was holding some sort of dark secret that only this guy could possibly know. He whispers that secret in Amadeus's ear before taking his leave. We as the reader don't actually get to hear what is said, but clearly whatever it was bad enough to force the Doctor into his own mania, returning that night to dig up the wall, believing that his son's long-lost corpse was there. Oh, but the truth is actually far more devastating than that could ever possibly be. Oh, there was a body behind the wall, but it wasn't the young boy that Dr. Amadeus had adopted. Oh no, it was Jack Doe's body, for you see, Jack Doe was not the mastermind of the escape, he was not the proto-Joker, he was not Jack the Ripper, it was actually the young boy whose real name was always Jack Grimm. Meaning that all of this was a sick, long con game for the Joker to gain control of Arkham Asylum. Dr. Arkham ends up going mad just like his mother, burning down the entire hospital and all the patients there inside, freeing up the land to be bought and for the Ark M that we all know now to be built. Dr. Arkham sent a letter filled with his findings to a Detective Flass, no doubt probably an ancestor to Harvey Flass, but the letter never got there, being intercepted by Jack Grimm, who in the modern era we now see has turned his attention fully to Batman. Why? Not just because he's messing with his business interests, but also because the Joker is kind of fascinated by Batman. Like him, he is the only other person to have escaped Ark M, meaning that he might very well end up being the perfect candidate for Jack Grimm to test Ark M's brand new creations. All with names on their files that should be very familiar to longtime Batman fans, and if they fail, don't worry, the Joker always keeps an ace up his sleeve in the form of the Deathstroke. Now after that shocking conclusion, we switch on over to Batman issue number 5, also from this week. Keeping with the Arkham theming, Bruce Wayne is taking Dr. Zeller, the brand new head of Arkham Tower, out on a date that is totally not a date, but is kind of a date, in hopes of trying to discover if she really is illegally experimenting on patients in the hospital like the Riddler seemed to imply a couple issues ago. Now, normally Bruce Wayne isn't the sort of person who would flex his power as boss over an employee like this, but he has to make it look like he is to try and put Zeller off her game. She's very smart after all. The two attempt to size each other up, but they're barely on the road for a minute when they end up coming under attack by a group of Japanese bikers wielding katanas. The real question, of course, being, are they here to kill the Doctor or are they here to kill Bruce? This also ends up setting up the very cool conceit for this issue. Can Bruce Wayne save himself and the Doctor from their attackers while not revealing that he's Batman and having to do all of this without his costume and without most of his fun gadgets? Bruce tries to give the bikers the slip by doing some very exciting stunt driving, which certainly wouldn't be out of the norm for a rich playboy with enough money to smash up nice cars like Bruce Wayne would be. The two think the worst is over when they end up getting cornered in an alley by a brand new face. This is Oijo. Well, that is her name now. Originally, she was supposed to be called Lady Deathman, a very fun reference to Lord Deathman, the original supervillain from the pages of the Batman manga. But for some reason, they decided to change it at the last second. Oijo is one of those words that has a couple different meanings in Japanese. It can mean young lady or someone else's daughter. All you need to know, though, is that she is incredibly fast, can move as a flock of birds, and seems to have swords made of solid light. Thankfully, Bruce comes packing a suit that not only looks great for nights out on the town, but also comes complete with nano mesh that can absorb a couple slashes. Dr. Zeller doesn't see most of the fight as she ends up taking cover in a nearby dumpster. The most surprising thing of all, though, is that when the bikers end up picking up our hero's trail again, Oijo actually takes her leave, implying that the two forces were not actually working together, despite their, let's face it, pretty shared aesthetic. This means that Dr. Zeller and Bruce are going to have to now hoof it through Little Tokyo while being hunted. Ever the psychiatrist, Dr. Zeller cannot stop herself from psychologically profiling Bruce. I mean, hey, why would a guy so rich be so reckless? Why does he seem to be so strong and so fit, when other rich people are so defined by their laziness? She is just so dangerously close to zeroing in on the fact that Bruce is Batman, and she might very well have figured it out too, if not on the next rooftop her train of thought was ruined by the return of Oijo. This also puts Bruce in an awkward position, as to defend them both, he is going to have to show that he is a quite capable combatant. Thankfully, though, it doesn't come to that, as aid is rendered at the last second by the coming of Damian Wayne Robin. Turns out he actually knows this lady from his time in the League of Assassins, and as such he came with an electric net perfectly suited to counteracting her amazing abilities. Here's the problem, though. Damian loves to talk and pat himself on the back, so much to the point he wasn't even aware that his father was with someone, meaning that when he calls Bruce Dad, Dr. Zeller actually ends up hearing the whole thing. That's gonna be a big problem later, isn't it? Now, from the worlds of Batman to the world of Spider-Man, what's Peter Parker getting up to this week? Well, following on from the previous issue, him and his team of totally not Guardians of the Galaxies are making a beeline to one of the last active Stargates in the universe, capable of getting Frosty the Snowman to the North Pole before he melts. I mean, getting Spider-Man back to Earth before the next big event starts. Pete's team is really sad to see him go, despite the fact that they have literally only been together for like, what, a handful of issues? Though his current alien situationship is intrigued at the idea of visiting Earth and trying that whole ice cream thing that the humans love so much. Deep down in his heart of hearts, though, Peter is conflicted because he knows full well that he won't be able to return to Earth unless he deals with Hellgate, the guy who beat the ever-loving crap out of him and exiled him in the first place. This is also where mad space scientist Dr. Xanto Starblood comes in. Apparently off-panel he has been hard at work making Spider-Man a brand new gene recoder, a special serum that when taken should hopefully give Spider-Man the power he needs to overcome Hellgate once and for all. Of course, it's untested, and there's no promise that it might take just as much as it gives, which Xanto doesn't want because, oh, you know what, after spending all this time together, I have come to like you, Spider-Man. Geez, might have been nice if we could have seen some of that on the page, but once again, I digress. Fearing for the safety of his new friends and crew, Peter sneaks out in the dead of night, hoping to make it to the gate while everyone else is asleep. Along the way, he ends up getting confronted by Glitch, who I feel like there was probably way more meant to be for these characters that we'll never actually see because they're rushing this story to its conclusion. They try and draw a parallel between the two situations, Glitch saying that he also threw it all away a long time ago when he decided to leave the Technarchy and drift through the cold, empty infinite of space, and that if Peter is going out there to meet his fate right now, then the least he can do is dress for the occasion because, hey, black and gold goes with everything, and I mean, he's not wrong. Surprise, surprise, by the time Spider-Man actually makes his way to the all-important Stargate, the warring alien factions who have been at each other's throats since the end of the Imperial storyline by Hickman are already dead and defeated at the hands of Hellgate. Hellgate refuses to let Spider-Man go before they finally have themselves one heck of a rematch, and Peter has actually given their rivalry a lot of thought. He hates Hellgate for what he did to him and what he did to Earth. But after hanging out with Raylith for a bit and coming to understand what kind of planet Hellgate is from, a planet with a lot of its own problems that seemingly can only be solved by this prophecy, Peter Parker wouldn't exactly be a hero in this situation, situation if he didn't at least try and offer to help. Which is exactly what he does. Unfortunately for everyone, Hellgate is something of a one-note meathead who refuses to accept help and instead just wants the two to fight. And hey, you know what? While I'm still not convinced by Hellgate, while I still think he is a poor man's new god ripoff, while I haven't been convinced about much of his motivation in the story up until now, I will say this. The fight that he and Spider-Man actually have here in the shadow of the Stargate kind of kicks ass. Spider-Man's jumping all over the place, ducking and diving Hellgate's attacks. He even picks up one of those Kree hammer weapons from one of the fallen enemies and uses it against the big lug, and it just looks great. Of course, eventually the villain ends up getting the upper hand and knocks Spider-Man around like a goddamn ragdoll. With his back against the wall and few options left, he decides maybe now is the time to take the gene recoder and see what kind of amazing powers it can offer him. But oh, Spider-Man doesn't need to take the gene recoder, because at that very moment his friends in their ship end up pulling up and hitting Hellgate with absolutely everything they got. Oh man, I think I get it now. Maybe the real gene recoder was the friends we made along the way. You know, I kid, but at the end of the day, I'm not made out of stone, and I actually am a sucker for this kind of thing. Peter's crew ends up saving him, forcing their way through the Stargate, and heading onward to Earth. Peter is truly messed up, but he will live. In fact, so will Hellgate for that matter. It seems that whatever prophecy involves him and the Prince of Silksteel, it has yet to fully have been completed, meaning that no doubt the two will cross swords once again. Oh goody. And so that was comics this week, everyone, and oh man, what a mixed bag it truly ended up being. Ark M, I think, proved to be the standout, and why wouldn't it be? It works as a really creepy, really cool reimagining of the Arkham Asylum concept for this new, darker, absolute universe. It's also kind of a sequel continuation of the Joker's origin from a few issues ago, adding some fun new wrinkles to that. I like this idea that in this new universe where the Joker is, more than just your regular crazy person, more than just, your run-of-the-mill supervillain, he still spent a lot of time in Arkham Asylum, and that it was still ultimately very important to his creation story. Batman from Matt Fraction continues to be a ton of fun too. I love the dedication to telling these really strong, really exciting, really visceral one-and-done stories. I love the dedication to introducing new, colorful supervillains who cut great silhouettes, something we don't get a ton. I love that they play with the Robins and you don't know which one you're gonna get. Overall, just a super fun time. And then rounding it all out, you of course have Spider-Man, which I continue to feel very conflicted on. On one hand, I think Joe Kelly is a really strong writer who is able to make this whole cosmic Spider-Man stuff sing. I just wish we had more time to, really live in this status quo, to really enjoy what's going on here, but it feels like they are just tripping over themselves to get Spider-Man back to Earth and start, well, basically all the same old stuff that I wasn't exactly enjoying to begin with. But hey, at least it looks nice, at least the action scenes are good, so, definitely have nothing to complain on that front, even if I can complain about a lot of other stuff. But yep, that'll just about do it for me for another week, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will be back again next week. Bye-bye.